snow in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. Thank you for starting our recording, Kelsey. We are now being recorded. We are now live on air, we'll say. Kirkland Lake has no snow. So just some of the learning objectives today, just explaining what SAD is, differentiating between SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder, and major depression. Ironic that it's, seasonal affective disorder, its acronym is SAD when we're talking about depression. Describing the role of structure in your life, sunlight, good to have you, Crystal from Thompson, and on mental wellness as well. So the definition of seasonal affective disorder, right, according to the DSM, is basically just a subtype of major depressive disorder. So last week when we were talking about depression, we talked about major depressive disorder, the actual depressive disorder that people experience, and it becomes an illness that you have to treat, right? Depression, sadness comes and goes in our life. Emotions are part of our life. That's fine. We can have ebbs and flows out of certain emotions our entire life, but then they can turn into illnesses that have to be treated, and you have to put some kind of intervention in to kind of lift those things, right? So just like it says here, major depressive disorder in which depressive episodes occur seasonally. That's the difference here with seasonal affective disorder. So it's a part of major depressive disorder. It's a subtype of it, but you'll notice it comes more commonly in the fall and winter, and then it'll remit or it'll kind of go away in spring and summer, right? Once there's no new growth, things start getting warmer, sun is out more, there's more light exposure, and then our circadian rhythms adjust as well. So according to the DSM, that's just kind of what we use always for diagnostic sources, is with seasonal affective disorder, like we said, it's a subtype of major depressive disorder. So it's like you have depression, it's a subtype of it, which, you might have low mood, hypersomnia, which means you're very, very tired or you're sleeping a lot, right? Fatigue, you might have more cravings for carbohydrates. You're withdrawing from a lot of people and things that you might have done before. You're withdrawing from the interests that you like, from the people you like. And there's a distinction between like winter blues and then clinical seasonal affective disorder, right? And there's biological factors. We're going to be talking about circadian rhythm disruption, melatonin overproduction, and serotonin depletion or underproduction, right? So SAD, which I might be saying throughout this, just stands for seasonal affective disorder. That's just the acronym. And it's not a lone DSM diagnosis, right? It's part of the major depressive disorder or the bipolar disorder, as you see here. Pattern typically occurs in fall and winter, right? People might already be starting to experience seasonal affective disorder as we're in mid-November now, right? We're a couple of weeks from turning over to December and the holiday season and colder temperatures and things like that, and caused by seasonal changes that impact circadian rhythm, serotonin and melatonin regulation, which we're going to be going through. The diagnose, DSM-5's diagnostic criteria, and to diagnose it, you have to see these things, right? So an onset of depressive symptoms occur at a particular time of year, right? So you might have from March, April, all the way to October, November, all of a sudden you see there's a lift in your spirits. You're doing a lot better. You don't have those depressive, low mood. You're sleeping all the time. You're withdrawing from friends. You're withdrawing from your interests. Those things don't happen during the summer, but you'll notice a pattern maybe with yourself or other people you might know. They kind of start going down a slippery slope with their emotional output, with their social output and things like that. And you start noticing a pattern that it happens every time around fall and winter, right? It lasts at least 2 years. So you notice it not just, one winter, that's not a big deal, right? That's not necessarily seasonal affective disorder. But if it's starting to last over like past 2 years and you're noticing it being a common occurrence consistently, then it might be seasonal affective disorder, right? And if we know it's seasonal, then we can start putting in interventions and different things like that before we get too far into a depressive state, right? In January and February when it could really hit us, when we could have already been putting interventions in September, October, things like that to prevent it. Seasonal episodes outnumber non-seasonal episodes. So over the individual's lifetime, seasonal episodes must be more frequent, right? So just that being consistent. So some of those symptoms that people might start experiencing during winter and fall and those darker times of the year, we just had the clock go back for a lot of people, right? The clock fell back a couple weeks ago. That changes our circadian rhythm. Um, it's darker at a different time of day now. At nighttime, it's super dark early, right? Um, and the symptoms we may have from this is depressed mood most of the day, low energy, increased sleep, increased appetite, weight gain, and like it says at the bottom, social withdrawal or hibernation mode. It's almost like we're hibernating, like that little kitty cat we see on the screen, right? We start sleeping a lot more. We don't get out very much. And just like we talked about depression last week, that we are social creatures. And if we're not getting out to work, we're not getting out to school, we're not getting out to see our family, we become socially isolated in our homes, in our bedrooms, with our own thoughts. And that's a recipe for depressive symptoms to exponentially get worse, right? We have to make sure we're getting out there, not only seeing other people socially, but getting out there and breathing in fresh air, seeing new things, right? Not just being on our phones or our tablets or our TV screens by ourselves with our own thoughts, right? We are social creatures. We have to make sure that we're getting out there. So some of the biological mechanisms. So what happens when it starts getting darker, when it starts getting colder, right? We stop going outside as much. Is that longer darkness increases melatonin, which causes fatigue, right? We all have melatonin in us. It's something that our body produces. Melatonin starts secreting throughout the day, and as our melatonin builds up in our body, it tells us, okay, it's time to sleep. Let's go to sleep, and then we go to sleep, right? Um, and what kicks off melatonin is lack of sunlight, right? So later on in the days when the sun is starting to go down, our body is triggered and it says, okay, it's starting to become nighttime. Let's start secreting some melatonin. And it slowly secretes melatonin throughout the day, your body. It builds up, and then by nighttime, you should be tired. Um, that can get out of whack too with darker times, or where it's secreting earlier in the day and you're tired throughout the day. Now that's why you get tired and you're kind of a hypersomniac where you're starting to sleep lots. You go into hibernation mode, right? The other one is serotonin disruption. So reduced sunlight decreases serotonin, right? And studies have shown that serotonin is a neuro transmitter, which is just a big word for like a chemical in our body, in our brain. Serotonin is decreased and it makes us feel good, according to a lot of studies. Now, if there's less sunlight in the winter, we're not getting as much serotonin. So we've got to do other things to help our body secrete some of that serotonin because that makes us feel good, right? There's also circadian rhythm imbalance, light changes, shift, internal body clocks. So just like I said, with the clock falling back last week, we always hear every year where the clock either jumps ahead in spring or falls back in the fall. People are always saying, you know what, we just shouldn't have daylight savings time anymore. We should just leave the clock where it needs to be. Because even that 1 hour change difference, right? It really throws everybody off, right? You start seeing car accidents more. You start seeing even things like heart attacks and things like that because our circadian rhythm is off. We see these spikes in car accidents and heart conditions and things like that around these time changes. So it just goes to show our circadian rhythm how we have to really try to keep it in balance um, with a structured day-to-day life. Vitamin D reduction, less UV exposure reduces vitamin D, affecting mood, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit more. It's like serotonin, like we said a little bit earlier, it helps with your mood and your motivation, right? So if you have serotonin pumping through your body, you're going to be a more motivated individual. You're going to have mood stabilizations. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have a bit more of an appetite and a focus, right? If you need to focus on work or you need to focus on school or your kids or whatever your responsibilities might be, right? Just checking out here. Yeah, Lorna says in Saskatchewan, time doesn't change, right? I can never remember, Lorna. Sometimes you're at the same time as us, and then some parts of the year you're different time than Manitoba because I think you guys just, I don't know if you stay with your spring clocks or your fall clocks, but maybe you can teach us. Melatonin, the sleep and darkness hormone, tells the body when it's time to sleep. Darkness increases melatonin. So in winter, longer nights, longer days, right, or shorter days means more melatonin, which helps make you fatigue low energy, and difficulty waking up. And then there's vitamin D, which is the sunshine vitamin, right? When we are outside and we're getting blasted by the sun, our skin actually absorbs the sunlight and it converts it to vitamin D, right? Hits the skin, supports our brain health, supports our immune system and mood regulation, right? So it has three really key functions within our body. And if we're not getting enough vitamin D, that alters our brain health, it alters our immune system. And sure enough, what happens more when it starts getting darker and cold and things like that? Our immune systems become compromised. You start seeing a lot more flus. Right now, doesn't matter where I am. I was in Montreal a couple of weeks ago, people were sick all over. Right now, I'm back in Manitoba now, people are sick here. And it's my hockey teams that I coach and my kids' schools and just regular adults, workplaces, right? And we're not getting as much vitamin D now because aside from the sunlight being a little bit further from Earth, we just don't go outside as much when it's colder, right? We're kind of scared of the cold. We stay away from it, stay inside the house where it's nice and warm, but we have to get out there and still soak up some of that sun. Um, and mood regulation, right? So low levels are linked to depressive symptoms, low energy, increased vulnerability to seasonal affective disorder. So how can we get vitamin D aside from the sun? Well, with a really good healthy diet, right? Here's a really good list that you can take down of maybe some things you want to maybe experiment in the kitchen with, right? Maybe some new items that you want to start incorporating in your diet now that it's November, right? For at least the next few months to make sure you're getting those high levels of vitamin D. We got cod liver oil, trout, salmon, mushrooms, milk, 2%. You can get vitamin D fortified, soy, almond, and oat milks, ready-to-eat cereals that are fortified with vitamin D, sardines. So as you can kind of see, it's lots of fish. There's eggs have vitamin D, liver, beef, braised, tuna fish, cheese, cheddar, like cheddar cheese, mushrooms, chicken breast, and uh, and other beefs as well, right? So add these to your diet. Make sure you're getting lots of those whole foods that'll boost your vitamin D as well. Like it said in the slide before, right? We want to make sure that we have good solid immune system so we're not feeling as sick and cold and our energies are depleted, right? Make sure we're incorporating these into our diet as well. So some of the biological factors, I'm gonna change that, minimize something here. Um, is just reduced sunlight also disrupts our circadian rhythm, right? The melatonin goes up, makes us more tired. Serotonin changes our mood. Living in northern latitudes, right? So if you're a little bit farther north in Canada, you have even longer nights, right? You have even longer nights than people even further in the south, right? So you have to make sure that we are getting that vitamin D, we're going out into the exposure of the sun, and we're getting out there. And females actually have a higher prevalence as well of seasonal affective disorder. Psychological factors, you might have a family history of depression or bipolar disorder. If you have a family history or genetic factors that make you a little bit more vulnerable to depressive symptoms, then make sure you're putting in those interventions and really trying to take care of yourself so you don't fall into those depressive symptoms and that depressive cycle each fall or winter when seasonal affective disorder can happen, right? Social isolation during winter months, that can definitely increase our likelihood of having those depressive symptoms. Personality traits depends on how you look at things, your perception of the world around you. Are you looking at the glass half empty all the time, or are you looking at the glass half full? We talked about that a little bit last week in that session as well. Cultural disconnection, increasing vulnerability, and what it can look like. So just like we said, depression last week, it could just feel like a really heavy cloud over your daily life, right? Feeling trapped in low energy, you just can't get that gusto to get up and go and do something, right? Unable to motivate yourself even for simple tasks, right? Experiencing joyless days. It's just you don't have any joy in your life. This is what seasonal affective disorder can be, right? It's that subtype of major depressive disorder where it's actually starting to become more of an illness rather than a day-to-day sadness, right? It starts becoming an illness where that you actually have to intervene and treat it, right? If you start noticing some of these things, then you have to put those interventions and coping mechanisms in place to treat it, just like you would with a flu or a cold or an illness that you might have. You start putting in interventions if you have an infection. You go and take antibiotics, or you might take a different medication, or you might use herbal teas, and you might do this and that, right? You start putting in different interventions to make sure you get over that illness, just like we can with seasonal affective disorder and depression. So disorder, how sad and depression are kind of differentiate, right? So sad is onset, predictable, right? It's coming every fall and winter for those people that struggle, that live with it, right? Where major depressive disorder can happen year round, right? It's an illness that can come out of nowhere. So it's a specifier of major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder. Depression is more of just a mood disorder. The cause linked to reduced sunlight and circadian rhythm, where major depressive disorder can be genetic, biological. It's a multifactorial kind of thing, right? Treatment for SAD can be like light therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, meds, exercise, nature, and same kind of thing with depressive disorder. So skills and strategies, right? So it's cold in November. It's getting darker. Clocks are changing. Holiday season's right around us, maybe some stress and things like that. We have to make sure we're still getting light therapy. And we can get light therapy from the sun, right? Even though it's colder, even though the sun's farther away and we're not accessing as much of it, the sun still impacts us even in winter, right? Even in those cold temperatures. Vitamin D supplementation. Make sure you check with your physicians, naturopaths and things like that for what you might need for vitamin D supplementation, adding those healthy foods, daily routines to support mood, right? If you're staying up all hours of the night and not getting adequate sleep and your circadian rhythm is off, you've got to try to reset that, right? Try to get on a more structured daily routine where you're waking up in the morning, you're going to sleep properly at night. You might have to take a melatonin supplement if that's something for you as well, if you're not sleeping at night. Things like our phones as well. Our phones all have blue light, which actually research has shown that when we're looking at our phones and it has that blue light, it is reducing actually our melatonin in our body. So we're on our phones all day on this light, and it's telling our brain, oh, I'm seeing a lot of this blue light. And the blue light tricks our brain into stop secreting melatonin. And now you see with a lot of people who are on their phones all day, they have difficulty sleeping at night, right? Because maybe their body isn't producing enough melatonin because we're on our phones all the time, right? So what you should do is most phones have have an area, a setting on their phone where you can actually turn off the blue light, right? It's called the blue light filter. Mine is right here. I click it on. The screen kind of goes almost like a brownie yellow. It's not very visually appealing, but you should be doing that so the blue light stops coming in. Try to do that in the late afternoon, but you shouldn't be taking in all that blue light in the evening if you're on your phone, right? Put on the blue light filter, and that'll help your body as well. Just a quick little video about light therapy as well. You can buy these lights as well that emit light. They help trigger our brain to wake up and start operating. So I'm just going to see if this works. Yep, it does. We're not sponsored by Budweiser, just a quick ad.
Want to flip the switch on feeling down during the winter months? Dr. Craig Sawchuk suggests giving light therapy a try.
Light therapy is one of our effective treatments that is actually really easily tolerated. Rarely do people have side effects of it, and it's a pretty portable type of intervention that we can do.
Light therapy is thought to affect brain chemicals linked to mood and sleep, easing symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Dr. Sawchuk recommends using a 10,000 lux light within the first hour of waking up for about 20 minutes.
That tends to be about the sweet spot of exposure to that light. You want to make sure that the light is sitting probably about an arm's length or so in front of you. You don't have to stare directly at the light, but you want to keep your eyes open so you could be doing things like having breakfast or a cup of coffee, watching TV, working online or scrolling through things.
Continue light therapy into the spring or whenever your mood starts to naturally improve. For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Dee Dee Steepen.
Yeah, so that's just light therapy, and you can buy those lights at a lot of different stores. You can buy them on Amazon and things like that. Put it on in the morning if you're in an office or whatever it might be. Maybe you don't have a window. I luckily have a window in my office where I can see outside. I also have a light right here. but get one for your office, your home, your bedroom, whatever it might be, and that'll also help with that secretion of certain things as well. So, like it says here, bright light therapy, 10,000 lux morning sessions, increases serotonin, regulates melatonin production, helps restore normal circadian rhythm, kind of helps you wake up and get that first pep in your step, right? Does winter light still help, right? So we think of the winter being a lot more colder. Yes, it definitely does help. So natural light is always stronger than indoor light, obviously, right? So the outdoor light in winter is 5,000 to 20,000 lux, right? Indoor lighting is only 100 to 500 lux. Even on cloudy winter days, outdoor light is 10 times stronger than indoor light, right? So that outdoor light, even in winter, is still very, very significantly strong, right? And we want to be going out there to absorb that light and get it. And that's even on cloudy days, right? Doesn't matter if it's a sunny or a cloudy day. The sunlight is still coming through the clouds and absorbing on our body and helping our circadian rhythm adjust accordingly. Number two, winter sunlight still boosts serotonin, right? So sunlight exposure increases serotonin activity. 15 to 30 minutes of daylight can improve mood and alertness, right? So go out for a walk, right? Put on your headphones or just listen to nature. If you're lucky enough to be around nature, you might be in a city, go to a park, go in your neighborhood, and just go out for a walk, right? 15 to 30 minutes isn't that long. Um, it's very rare where you go for a 30-minute walk and you come back in and you say to yourself, "Oh, I just feel awful now," right? That 30-minute, even of the cold exposure, can really boost us. And a lot of times people say, "You know what, I feel a lot better," right? After a little 30-minute walk, a little exposure to nature, exposure to the sun, things like that. And just being near a window. If you have an opportunity to be in an office or wherever you might work, be close to a window so you can see outside and even feel the sunlight from outside. Another way that you can intervene a little bit is, aside from bright light therapy, is adding plants, right? Studies show interacting with indoor plants lowers stress, hormones, and blood pressure, right? So go to the store, buy yourself some cool indoor plants that you could bring in. Even attending to them will boost your mood, right? Knowing that you have to give them water, take care of them, talk to them, right? Plants can actually hear us and interact with us as well. They are sentient beings. So that's a whole nother workshop that we could talk about later on down the road. But studies have shown that nature in our offices and our homes also boosts our immune system, right? Key findings with houseplants as well. So it reduces the depressive systems and rumination. Rumination is what we were talking about last week, where people get into a depressive state and they just stay there, right? They ruminate, and it's really hard to get out of rumination, right? And that's when it kind of becomes more problematic, is when you're in rumination. It increases resilience and well-being. So there's mechanisms such as biophilic connection. That's just our connection to nature. Behavioral activation, restoration, and mindfulness. It's very peaceful and tranquil having plants in our homes, right? Healing effects of nature. So when we are going outside for those walks, or we're going to a park, or we're going to a biodome, right? I know Winnipeg has a really beautiful biodome known as the Leaf. It's called the Leaf in Assiniboine Park, and it's just this incredible. You go in there, and there's the Canada's largest indoor waterfall, and there's these tropical plants, and then there's a Mediterranean area, and there's another area which mimics the same as the north with different vegetation and spruce trees and things like that. And that place is pure medicine. If you ever have a chance to go when you're in Manitoba or Winnipeg, you should be going to the Leaf and just sit and be mindful, right? If you don't have that in where you're from, just go to the bush, right? Go out in nature, go to a park and just be with it. Smell it, bring it in, right? So what this slide says is that trees have their own immune systems, right? Trees and vegetation are constantly under attack, just like we are, right? Our immune systems are always going. There's bacteria, there's viruses on things. Trees also have their own immune systems, which when they're being attacked by fungus or disease or weather, right? The cold will activate vegetation's immune systems. The wind will actually activate it, right? And when trees and things like that their immune systems are activated, they produce something called phytoncides, right? And when they produce phytoncides, they emit these phytoncides, it goes into the air, and we breathe them in. We breathe in phytoncides. And studies have shown too When we breathe in these phytoncides outside, it boosts our NK cells, which stands for natural killer cells. And those are probably the most important part of our immune systems, right? It's a very strong immune response that helps kill viruses and infections within us. And NK cells don't only fight off cells, they also they're also a communication system to the other parts of our immune system and other cells to also help in attack. So they're almost like the army general um, of our immune systems, where they go and fight on the front lines, but they tell everybody else too that we need to fight. So we breathe in those phytoncides, and we have a significant boost of NK cells that actually um, we start producing in abundance when we're outside. So this next slide kind of talks about those phytoncides, benefits various areas of our health. Just going to check out our chat here. And the benefits with phytoncides, when we're outside and we're outside only for, 30 minutes to an hour a day, we breathe in those phytoncides and actually boost our immune system for days, right? Even weeks, depending on the amount of time you're outside, right? And I talked to a lot of elders and knowledge keepers, and even my dad in particular, he's 74 years old, and he said, Tyler, he said, like, we didn't have a lot of these illnesses and diseases and mental illness and things like that when I was a kid, right? And you look at kind of our elders and the knowledge keepers, you look at their upbringing, right? They were kind of the last generation where they were really connected to the land, right? They were connected to the land. They had to fetch wood to keep stoves going. They had to keep you warm. They had to fetch wood for the cook stove. They had to garden. They were very agricultural still. They had to hunt for land. They were outside lots with no tablets and no phones and things like that, right? So they're really connected to the land. And as they're connected to the land, they're breathing in these phytoncides constantly, right? So that's why their immune systems were always boosted. Their mental health was always boosted, right? Things like that. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they didn't see much of it when they're obviously things are more diagnosed now. There's a lot less stigma with certain things, but I really believe they were kind of the last people that were connected to the land before this new technological wave of tablets and phones where people don't go outside now, right? We sit in we wake up in the morning, we get dressed, we um we go into our car, we drive to work. Now we're at work for 8 hours a day amongst drywall and steel and stuff like that. Then we hop back in our car, then we go home for the most part, and we're barely connected to the land at all. We're barely connected to outside, to sunlight and things like that. It's just room to room, drywall, concrete, things like that. We have to make sure that we're getting outside and exposing ourselves to nature, to air, and phytoncides, and all these different things as well. Jenny says, has a good question. With the increased cost of foods, how are families able to achieve this goal of vitamin D rich foods? Very, very good question, Jenny, right? Grocery costs are significant right now, right? And a lot of those foods you see are like fish and vegetables and things like that, right? Which are pretty costly things. But another really good thing about trying to instill food security in our communities, and those food items in particular, is that fish can be free, right? We can go and fish in rivers, we can go and fish in lakes, get a harvest, we can go onto the land and do hunting and things like that, right? Um, and if we're doing that, then we're not paying as much for those foods, right? But it's just like I said, food costs are difficult for some people. Depending if you are in a city, maybe you can't hunt, right? You might have to be using food banks and things like that, or trying to adjust your budget accordingly and maybe cutting where you shouldn't be spending, right? Some people smoke and they're like, I'm going to keep smoking, but my groceries might, that's a decision you make, right? We have to make sure that we're cutting certain areas of our budget so we can afford certain foods elsewhere, right? Um, but yeah, just proper budget and financial management. But yeah, definitely totally understand, Jenny. It's not always easier said than done, right? But there are ways you can try to incorporate it. Furthermore, with house plants, place plants near your brightest window. Spend 5-10 minutes caring for them daily, right? Choose low maintenance, non-allergenic species. Use alongside light therapy and healthy routines throughout your day. a really good Japanese teaching as well that I was when I was in Japan doing forest nature therapy as well. This is something that they often share is that if you feel like you're losing everything, remember that trees lose their leaves every year, yet they still stand tall and wait for better days to come, right? So even if you're struggling right now, or somebody that you know is struggling right now, or they struggle with seasonal affective disorder or just major depressive disorder, it might feel like the whole world is coming down, right? And you're losing everything, right? It's a really good analogy with nature as well that, every year trees lose all of their leaves. They lose everything right down to their bare bones, right? And that's sometimes how life feels. Everything is kind of happening. The sky is falling, right? And just understand that you should try to stand tall, be resilient through it, and wait for better days to come, right? Change up your routine if you need to, have different perspective on the seasons, right? People look at winter and say, oh my God, winter is coming. I'm going to hate this. It sucks. It's cold. It's this, right? But what's a way that we can look at winter in a positive light? How can we change our perspective? So I'm going to put that in the chat. How, what is one thing? I just put a question in the chat. People could respond. I'm just going to give everybody a quick minute. What's one thing positive about winter? We always look at winter as being cold or snowy. What's a good thing about it? Yeah, skidoo riding. I love skidooing. Time to rest and reset 100%. The quietness when the snow falls, that is like the actual best. Very good at, yeah, skating, fishing, the beauty of nature, hoarfrost, right? Hoarfrost is so beautiful, right? Beating stations. Yeah, pull out the beating station. Root vegetables. Oh yeah, now you guys are getting me excited here. Yes, just bringing out the beating station during winter, right? If you are stuck inside a little bit more, then do those inside activities that you don't give yourself enough time to in summer, right? In the warmer months. Rabbit snaring, 100%. It's a lot easier to get rabbits, right? Inside projects, 100%. Crocheting, knitting, get those things done, right? Hot chocolate, no bugs. Exactly, Melissa, right? There's no mosquitoes and bugs after us, or very good. Crisp sound of snow. Oh, that's just, yeah, that's ASMR, right? It's just really good sounding. Crisp sound of snow, tires crunching in the snow, or frost. You can't beat it. There's sometimes too when you get a fresh snowfall and snow is like it's an insulation, right? It's sound barrier, sound insulation, and you can go outside and it changes all of the sound around you. It almost seems like you're in an enclosure because all of the sound is absorbing things, and it just I don't know, there's something almost like spiritual or really unique about it when you go to that fresh snowfall and you can hear things that you haven't heard before, or, it's really nice. Taking the kids sledding 100%, right? So we have to look at winter as like, oh, it's going to be cold, roads are going to get slippery. Well, there's a lot of really good things that happen in winter as well. Not too many people, when they see a beautiful picture of snowfall, like gentle snow falling, right? That's serene and beautiful and peaceful. If you show them hoarfrost and things like that, not too often people are like, oh, I hate that. That looks so ugly, hoarfrost, right? People like that, and it's beautiful to take, and it's allows us to be a little bit more mindful of life, right? And just like somebody said as well, just like it says on here, right? It's a time to slow down and reflect, right? When we look at different seasons, we look at spring, just like in our life cycles, in our life, right? We look at spring as there's new growth, right? The land has been resting, now there's new growth. And then in summer, you see the full bloom of that growth. You see the beautiful flowers and the beautiful grasses and the beautiful leaves on the trees, right? And then in fall, you see that stuff kind of being shedded, right? The leaves fall off, the flowers wilt and things like that. And then you go into winter where you rest, right? That's just like us as people as well, where um we have moments of new growth within our lives. We have moments of uh where we're doing really well. Then we have moments where we have to fall and shed some of the things in our life and then really rest. So it's a matter of how you look at these things. Winter is a season of recovery and preparation, right? Take winter as a time to recover yourself, your body, mind, and spirit. You know what? Maybe if you can't get outside and you really don't like the cold, maybe it's an opportunity for you to try to go to the gym. If you don't have a gym around you, maybe it's the time for you to start doing some home workouts and home programming, right? You don't need a lot of equipment at home, right? You can use your own body weight, your own furniture to be doing different activities. Use it as a time to maybe recover and prepare for what you want to be once spring comes around again, right? Spring and summer coming in 2026. What can you do to rest your mind, recover, prepare your body, prepare your mind, your emotions, your heart, your spirit? What can you do during those winter months, right? Exactly, Lorna. Chair yoga is not hard, right? If anybody has done chair yoga, you can find really good YouTube videos on chair yoga. If you have limited mobility and things like that, you can have a really good workout doing chair yoga as well. And there's workouts for everybody, for kids, everybody in between, right up to seniors who might have limited movement as well. So coping with seasonal affective disorder further, just really embracing that healthy routine, right? Your biological rhythms, they're disrupted by shorter days, reduces stress, right? Structured routines support your circadian rhythm and that stability. It improves your sleep efficiency, right? Want to make sure that we have social connections. Studies show that loneliness significantly predicts depressive symptoms, like we were saying earlier. If you're getting into that rumination and you're noticing yourself or other people around you stuck in that bedroom, stuck in their house, they never get out, that will exacerbate those symptoms, right? They'll make them a lot worse. So we have to make sure we're getting outside, right? And trying to see other people and trying to breathe in that air and that phyton sides and things like that. Um, like we see here, I do a lot of forest nature therapy. We'll do things like artwork outside. It doesn't matter if it's summer, spring, we make fun even in the winter, right? So here's some artwork, some cool little birdie that somebody made with cedar boughs and little twigs for the birdie's feet. Then they put the eyes and stuff like that using things from nature. The other one was a deer that somebody made from sticks and branches, twigs that they found out with a little frame and some floor, and they used the spruce needles as some grass for that deer, right? So you can go outside and be really creative as well, right? There's always ways we can get outside and have some fun. Do this with your kids, do this with your grandkids, with your nephews, with your partner. Go and we do something else called mandalas. And mandala is kind of like a piece of art using items from nature. And that mandala, you might use different items for different meanings of your life. And you almost make like a little picture and then you go around and tell people about what that mandala means, right? So some people might use, for myself, I've got 5 boys. I might use 5 rocks, and those 5 rocks symbolize my 5 boys, right? There's lots of ways you can get creative outside and have a lot of fun. Here's my three of my 5 boys out fishing on Lake Manitoba. They love it. You teach them lots of things out there as well. You're breathing in that fresh air, and after days like this, you go home, and what happens to your sleep? Everybody gets knocked out pretty quick, right? Your circadian rhythm is back. You're exposed to that air. You're exposed to the sun. Your body's fully in tune. You go home, and usually when people are outside all day, um, you hit that bed like a ton of bricks, and you have the best sleep of your life, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the air, it's that oxygen that really put me to sleep." That's part of it, but it's also part of you just being exposed to the outside air, to the sunlight. Your circadian rhythm is locked in properly now. You've seen sunlight, even if it's through the clouds, the melatonin is back in balance, and then you go home and it's nighttime and you sleep really, really good, right? So outdoor and nature exposure, like we said, physical activity, light exposure, sensory grounding, professional support. If it does get to a point where you are in rumination and depressive symptoms are really holding you back from getting to school or getting to work, or you're seeing it with a loved one, then these things might not always work, and you might need a little bit more professional support to help people see things in a new way, right? Sometimes as family members and friends, we try to help our loved ones as best as possible, right? We love them, they love us, but sometimes our advice falls on deaf ears and they just don't listen to us. Sometimes you hear better from people who you don't know, right? People who are outside of your social circle or your family circle. We just need to hear something better. And that could be from a professional, maybe a counselor, maybe a knowledge keeper, an elder, whoever it might be, just to go hear something different. Even, as a mental health clinician, I always hear this, and also as a hockey coach, where a parent will say, you know what, Tyler, I'm trying to teach my kid to do this on the ice in hockey. And mom and dad will be teaching them, right? Trying to tell them until they're blue in the face, and the kid doesn't listen. But then the kid will hear it from their coach because they don't really know me, or I'm just different than mom and dad. And they'll do it on their first try. And mom and dad will come to me and say, you know what, I've been trying to do that. I don't know what you did differently, but they're doing it now, right? Sometimes you just need a different voice, somebody who's neutral and not really part of your social circle, to hear from a different perspective, right? Nature therapy in cold climates. So even in winter, like we said, exposure to natural light and crisp air helps regulate those circadian rhythms. Dress in layers, aim for brief but consistent outdoor contact. If it's minus, don't put yourself at risk, obviously, if it's minus 32 with a minus 48 wind chill, but go outside and get those micro doses of nature, right? 5-10 minutes outside can reduce cortisol and improve mood. Cortisol, we talked about during the anxiety session. Cortisol increases our stress, right? If we have lots of cortisol pumping through us, we're really stressed out, right? Try coffee breaks outdoors or mindful snow walks, right? We think, oh, coffee outside, it's going to be so cold and uncomfortable, right? Well, you just got to dress properly for it. Snowshoeing, skating, you guys said a bunch of things. Beading inside, crocheting, right? Put on a fire if you've got a fireplace. If you don't, put on something with nature sounds on your TV, maybe a fireplace on your TV of crackling fire, house plants, natural materials in your home. Have some wood, stone. Take some time to go out and do some picking, right? Picking out nature and bring that stuff into your home, right? Can do other things like dioramas, like it says here, nature videos and soundscapes that trigger our parasympathetic responses, which we talked about in week 1. Those parasympathetic responses are the things that calm us down and make us feel grounded again and calm. Effects of nature, so lower blood pressure, lower stress, increased immune system, improves our mental illness or health. Biophilia is what we talked about a little bit earlier, with innate predisposition for humans to feel affinity for the natural world, right? So we have been connected to nature our entire lives, right? Up until, tablets and phones started coming out in 2008, I think was when the first iPhone came out. Before that, we had some cell phones and things like that, but they weren't as interactive. So we'll say like, or, around 2000, 2005, we'll kind of say is when internet and phones really started taking off. Before that, human existence has relied on nature. We've always been connected to nature. All of our genetics, all of our biology, we've been connected to nature through food, through shelter, through getting wood for the cook stove, through getting wood for to keep warm, through gardening, everything. We've always been connected to the land. And now all of a sudden, this brand new generation, we are stuck indoors. We are stuck in homes, in apartments, in concrete jungles and things like that. We don't get outside enough. And then we start seeing these spikes in mental health and other illnesses that people say, I never used to see this stuff as much. How come this is happening? I think it's not a research. Well, there is research on it, but that's just my belief of what it is. You can believe whatever you want. Practical examples for everyday life, like it said, walk snowshoeing along forest trails, bring evergreen branches, pine cones indoors. That is aromatherapy, right? Bring those things in so you're smelling that stuff, right? If you don't have these kinds of trees and things around you, go and buy essential oils, real essential oils, meaning they're harvested right from different plants, right? You're not getting artificial or synthetic oils and putting into a diffuser. You want the essential oils where it's actually harvested from spruce or pine, or I have one actually, it's a roller. You can also get rollers and it rolls oil onto your wrists or whatever you want, and then it pulsates throughout. Mine is actually from Japan when I was there. It was from the Yakusugi tree. And whenever I smell it, it just kicks in a peaceful and senseful, uh, just calm. And it's amazing. So get that throughout your home as well. Bring nature into home and workplace, natural textures, scents, and light. Right? So physical activity, people say, oh, it's too cold outside, or um, it's too cold outside, or I can't do it, right? This is my little 3-year-old. He did that was a 3 kilometer hike through this bush trail, and he did the whole 3 kilometers by himself. So just that physical activity, aerobic exercise, obviously is shown to have antidepressant effects, right? Get outside, get walking. Like you said, if it's cold out and you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to take a coffee break outside, or a 5 or 10 minute microdose of nature, this is a good quote. There's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing, right? So if you don't have those things like long socks and long johns and good mitts and maybe a good toque or a good jacket, go out and try to buy yourself some of that stuff. Be prepared for those cold months, right? Keep it on you all the time so you're not scared of outside, and you're properly dressed and it doesn't feel so bone chilling. If you're properly dressed, winter is actually pretty easy, right? And I've noticed that over my years now too, where I never used to dress properly, but now that I do, I love outside, right? So important to be outside with people we love, especially the little ones. 100% Beverly. Hot tub while watching the snowfall. Yes, if you've got a hot tub, by all means, jump in there, watch the snowfall. If you don't have one, well, maybe time to get a loan and go and get one installed, right? Yeah, Laura says, do not recommend starting with burpees. Yeah, get your body moving a little bit, right? It's just like when you're working with pottery, and you're putting water on the pottery. That stuff isn't going to move real quick, real fast. You've got to warm it up, get lots of water, and that pottery's got to be moving for a long time before it actually starts to move, right? That's just like our bodies, right? We have to make sure that we take a step at a time, a brick at a time. You don't want to go and run a marathon when you haven't even run a kilometer yet. Find an outdoor hot spring. Very good, Beverly. Outdoor hot springs, depending on what part of the country you live in. I know, again, in Winnipeg, aside from the Leaf, we have a place called Thermia. We have one in Riding Mountain National Park, which are Nordic spas. They're outdoor spas where they're surrounded by trees, they're surrounded by smells. There's essential oils in there. Make sure you're getting out there and just really trying to make the best of winter. It depends on how you, right? How you look at winter, your perspective on it. If you're always looking at it as, oh, cold and miserable, this and that, we just seen a lot of people who just said different answers of how winter is actually positive, what you get to do in winter that you don't get to in the other months as well. Marissa says thrift stores have large selection at cheap prices. Exactly. Go to a thrift store. You can be dressed up, toques, mitts, ski pants, things like that for a pretty good price, right? And I guarantee you a lot of the thrift stores have that right now if you have close to. Okay? Doesn't have to be super expensive, omni-thermal, -50 Arctic weather stuff. Just be good out there, right? And it doesn't have to be you're out there for an hour in -30, just those micro doses here and there throughout the day. I would recommend a good 30-minute walk every day outside. A recommended reading, which I might be doing a workshop on eventually, is Nature Deficit Disorder, and more about nature and the biological and the science behind it. But it's called The Last Child in the Woods, and it's something we all kind of suffer from. It's not a clinical diagnosis, but it's a term that Richard Louv, the author of this book, coined, and it's nature deficit disorder. So we always hear things like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Nature deficit disorder is a disorder I think that most of humanity has, meaning we're not exposed to nature enough. And as a result, we see those increases in mental illness. We see those increases in physical illness, right? We're seeing all this stuff from because we're not attached to nature enough. We all have nature deficit disorder. So go outside, boost your nature exposure, right? Make sure you're putting some of these things, the light therapy, the exercise, nature into practice. If you need professional help, check in with counselors, right? Check in with knowledge keepers and elders. Talk to other people outside of your circle to get a new perspective. Challenge yourself in ways of new thinking, right? If you're catching yourself always thinking in a negative fashion, it takes time to change that way of thinking, right? It takes practice, right? Our thought patterns. So make sure that you're trying to be mindful of that. Find an outdoor hot spring. Yeah, that's good. Just checking out the other chats here. Chair yoga, take the kids sliding. Yeah, 100%. So we have questions and answers now. If anybody had any questions. In the meantime, if you don't, if you could please scan this QR code. It's just another quick survey interview or survey, and asks you how this was, maybe any future learning that you might want to hear. Next week, we're going to be talking, next Monday's Lunch and Learn will be about grief and the holidays. So if you've lost not only somebody, but something, right? We're going to be talking about things you might have lost. Could have been a job that you're grieving, could have been an opportunity, could be a person in your life that you lost. The holiday season's coming up. So we want to make sure that we kind of talk about that and how to kind of navigate through that as well. QR code isn't working for me. If the QR code isn't working, Kelsey is awesome and just put the chat. There's session 4, but just above session 4, she put a link for the evaluation there. Just says, thank you all, completed a brief evaluation. You could click that link and it should pull up. There we go. Any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas? Get outside. Yeah, I'm not sure why the QR code isn't working this week, but whatever. We got the, yeah, there's the evaluation survey. Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, the first 2 sessions are on our SE Health website. I'll actually just scroll ahead to that since the QR is not working anyways. So here's our socials, Melissa. There's our YouTube. You can find, we record all of these and they're all on our YouTube. Thank you, Kelsey. See how fast Kelsey is? She's just like so amazing. Crystal, the link should just be above you in the chat. Carol, you can get all these presentations actually on YouTube. We've recorded them all. Today's will be uploaded a little later today or tomorrow, depending when. But the last 2 weeks, depression and anxiety, those are already updated to our YouTube if you needed to refer back. Thank you so much, Michael. You're the greatest. Thank you for attending. Sydney says, don't see the, thank you so much, Kathleen. Yes, thank you, Kathleen. Very, very appreciated. Slide. Yeah. Yeah, the slides can be available. YouTube, wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. Very appreciated. Oh, Kelsey, Carlos makes a point here. I think the link is being shared to the presenter only. Hey, Brenna, thank you. Nice. Thank you for joining us. Hope you learned a little bit, Bren. Good information. Very informative. Thank you, Brenna. Melissa, thanks. Here, I'm going to copy the evaluation real quick. Wait, and I'm going to see if I share it. Paste. Can you guys see that link? Thank you, Jamie. Glad that you learned lots. Yeah, so I just shared the link as well from myself. Awesome. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Candida.
To the chat.
Where we'll be able to see the presentation, even the ones from the previous sessions. Jenadale, maybe me and Kelsey will get the PDF slides and we can maybe shoot me an email. Here, I'll give you my email. There's my email, tylergeisler@sehc.com. Just shoot me an email and then I will send you the PDF of the PowerPoint slides so you can refer to those as well. Yeah, so there's my email, everybody, if you wanted the slides. Just shoot me an email and then I can get that together and send it over to you. And there's me in winter, right? That was my walk with my little 3-year-old. Really nice, beautiful. You can't beat those days. Yeah, so everybody, yeah, just send out evaluation, send me an email as you can see here. You guys are amazing. And like I said, next week, grief in the holiday season. Might be a little bit more emotional there, a little bit more difficult, but it's something we should be navigating together anyways, and something that we should be learning from anyway. So really looking forward. Thank you, Ramel. Very appreciated. Thank you, Crystal, for attending. I know they're only little lunch and learns, but I'm glad that you guys can pull some stuff from them as well. Thanks, Natalie. Very appreciated. So I will give everybody another minute or two. If you have any questions, and then we will stop recording and end the session. Thank you, Lindy. Thank you, Emily.